That like the Cosmos bear market was easily the most depressing,
Yeah.
hardest thing I ever went through.
Yeah, that was not fun.
Decentralized, scalable, and stable on Osmosis. Membrane Finance and their stablecoin CDT is doing just that. And today we're going to talk with their founder, Trix, all about it. The thing that this episode provides is a really good state of Cosmos Stablecoins, DeFi, and the builders in the space, from someone who is in the trenches being a solo founder, Trix. So anyways, let's get to it.
Hello, Trix. So, can you give me a quick rundown on what is membrane, and then sort of explain each little part for us, so then we can like map out the episode. So yeah, like what is membrane finance?
Yeah, so Membrane is a protocol that creates a CDP stablecoin, which is a loan-backed stablecoin called CDT. It's currently live on Osmosis, and it was basically created in response to Terra depegging, as I basically got into crypto through Terra. So I was already going to build a protocol with a co-founder that is no longer here. That sounds like he died, but he didn't die. I just don't know where he is. So yeah, we were gonna build the protocol, and then Terra depegged, or UST depegged, the whole chain crashed, and it was like, we know people are gonna be nervous about a new stablecoin, or stablecoins in general, but we still know that stablecoins are useful in the space, and a resilient model needed to be built. This is in a response, well, obviously in a response to UST being terribly weak, and basically easily exploitable from launch. It's not like the model was ever going to work. It was just very easy to obfuscate. But also, it's a response to DAI, because DAI is still the biggest decentralized stablecoin, but to grow, it essentially introduced a tight relationship with USDC, tight enough to where USDC could kind of censor DAI, not censor directly in the sense that if you have DAI in your wallet, they can blacklist your wallet. But if they blacklist the USDC that DAI has, then it becomes insolvent. So like right now, I mean, I don't know right now, but the USDC and DAI fluctuates between 30 to 50%, 20 to 50%, depending on the market. In bull markets, it goes down. In bear markets, it goes up. So if DAI ever becomes an issue to Circle or the government, they can just blacklist 20% of DAI supply, which becomes a problem because maker token holders are backing DAI solvency. So that becomes a huge mint of maker tokens to try to recoup those losses. So that was a little long-winded, but the point of Membrane and CDT is to create a stablecoin that is resilient in the face of whatever chaos we see ourselves in as the days go by.
Yeah, that was good. So, I guess, do you want to get into Terra first, or actually talk about the differences between DAI and CDT?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah. Okay, so perfect. So I already brought up the relationship with USDC, so I'll just stick with that. I'll start with that. So basically, DAI uses USDC to mint one-to-one, nearly one-to-one. Sometimes they have a fee. I think the fee is off right now. But one-to-one, so one USDC equals one DAI. They make or hold the USDC in their protocol so that you can swap it back to DAI later. So this is great for minting because it gives you 100% capital efficiency. But it also means that USDC now basically has control over DAI collateral. So instead, in order to be able to offboard that risk, whenever it shows itself. We accept USDC as well, or CDT accepts USDC as well. But it's liquidatable, so it's used as just as any other collateral. It's the same as BTC, ETH, Osmo, Atom. It's just another collateral with an LTV. So this means if it ever gets, or if there's ever an insolvency, let's say, and USDC goes down to 88 cents like it did, we can liquidate it. Well, I mean, it would have been liquidated already around like 93 cents, 94 cents. But when that happened to DAI and any other tokens that are minting one-to-one with USDC, the price followed. So DAI ended up going down to 88 cents a day. IST ended up going down to like 89 cents a day. So being able to liquidate and offboard that risk is a key point or a key part of the resilience of CDT. And then we talked about blacklisting. So blacklisting is different within Ethereum and Cosmos, or between Ethereum and Cosmos. Ethereum, the L1, mints or Circle mints USDC on Ethereum, the L1. So they can blacklist wallets on that chain. But in Cosmos, USDC is minted in Noble, or on the Noble chain. And Noble can only blacklist IBC channels. So if they wanted to blacklist CDT, if somebody wanted to blacklist the USDC in CDT, they would have to blacklist all of Osmosis. So if they can get that to happen, which is just an extra hurdle to go over, adds more friction to it. But if they get that to happen, users will then sell their USDC for any liquidity on chain, to try to get out if they don't think it'll be unblacklisted, if they're afraid of their funds, and that will send the price down. As it sends the price down, Membrane will attempt to liquidate its own USDC. So in those scenarios, Membrane is able to offboard the risk, or at least attempt to offboard the risk of using USDC during insolvencies or blacklists. So that's one of the main differences. There's like a bunch of extra small differences. Like for example, we use multiple collateral within one position. So instead of having, let's say you have Atom and Osmo on a lot of protocols, you can only, like, your position would be, or your loan would be Atom only collateral, minting DAI. And then you'd have to have a second one that's Osmo only collateral, minting DAI. So in Membrane, you can use Atom, Osmo, BTC, USDC, whatever you want, LPs, all at the same time. And not only does this make it easy because you only have to manage one position, but the volatility of the collaterals balances themselves out. So you can have a diversified position, diversified volatility within position. So like sometimes you'll have a scenario where you have Atom and Osmo goes down. That loan would have got liquidated by itself. But now that you have both of them in the same position, your loan isn't liquidated at all. So you're a lot safer as a collateralizer or as a minter.
Yeah, and so I guess let's get into why the US dollar metric is like the standard for stable coins.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Terra was thought, it was like, yeah, like we're currently pegged to the US dollar, but like eventually we'll do our own sort of. Why the US dollar? Do you guys have any plans to move away from it? Do you think it's harmful? Just like your general idea on pegging stable assets to the US dollar.
Yeah. So yeah, there's been a lot of talk. I mean, there's always talk about it, but like people using different assets as pegs. You brought up Terra. Terra couldn't get any demand for using other assets or other currencies. So that's like the bulk of the reason, because for a CDP stablecoin to work, you need a market around the stablecoin itself. So like there needs to be people that are providing liquidity in the stablecoin. And if the stablecoin is a weak currency, people aren't going to want to hold it. You need people to hold it so that the minters can can sell it to leverage as credit or to swap it to market make. So one, USD just has the best demand for a currency right now, so it's the most useful. A lot of people, well, let's just use like Silk as an example. Silk uses baskets. Well, if you don't know what Silk is a private stablecoin whose peg is a basket of assets on Shade Protocol and Cosmos. Well, I guess the chain is secret network, but I always call the chain Shade. But essentially, its peg is a basket, and its product is being a better saving tool because the price goes up over time in relationship to USD. So that's great. Compared to other currencies, this would be great to get demand to hold. But the problem with, well, the reason why most protocols don't do this is that this basket or the appreciation on the basket, so the appreciation on the peg ends up being a cost to the minters. So like if you're minting something that's $1 and you're collateralizing $2 and then that dollar goes up in price, then you just lost LTV space. So now your position is now more vulnerable to liquidation. So you can see it as a borrowing cost in the sense that the longer you hold it, or the more the basket performs for the holders, like the more vulnerable your position gets. So it's not always the best scenario for the minters, but it's a great scenario for the holders. So there's a trade-off there. But yeah, that's basically why you use USD, because it has a great trade-off for the demand for holders, and then its pricing to other assets is low volatility. So you're not worried about it as a minter as often. But this is only because USD is the most liquid, lowest volatility asset. So like if we get to a world where Bitcoin becomes the lowest volatility asset, there could be a chance where that becomes the new best asset to use as a peg for any CDP stablecoins or stablecoins in general. So when this happens, you want to be able to have built a protocol that can adapt its peg to use Bitcoin, or like to move from USD to Bitcoin. So this is another issue with using one-to-one minting with USDC, like DAI does, like IST does. So the problem is it's great for scaling when you have a USD peg, but you can't change your peg. So you're assuming that the USD is always gonna be the lowest volatility currency, which does not. I mean, even if that's a future in the next 10 years, that's a huge bet for a protocol, because it essentially puts your entire livelihood in the hands of the US dollar. Because if you try to switch your peg to Bitcoin, all the USD that's backing your DAI one-to-one is no longer one-to-one. So that becomes an issue. But yeah, essentially, I think that we'll probably get to, we'll probably at least get to a space where USD sees competition, as just assets in crypto get more liquidity. And even if it's not Bitcoin, having the ability to switch your peg to something else is going to be very, very useful. And also just it lowers stress, because if you see USD go down, you know you have options. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm a pro for adaptability. And I mean, I'd hope Bitcoin could be an option. But the main reason why Bitcoin like could be interesting as an option is because it has no inflation. Well, it has no inflation, quote unquote. So it has a max supply, and that max supply means that there's no new, okay, obviously, but it means that there's no new supply on the market. So like if demand goes in, price is always gonna go up. So this is great for number go up, but it's not really great for use in the economy. Because like if every time demand goes up, price goes up, then people that are holding it or people that are trying to get in to the asset are gonna have to deal with those fluctuations. Obviously, if you get to a certain size of liquidity, fluctuations might not matter. But in this case, you can use CDP stablecoins to increase the supply temporarily as demand increases to lower the volatility of Bitcoin even more. So it could be a little cherry on top to the monetary aspects of Bitcoin.
Yeah, could you get into the whole membrane diversified assets? That whole why do you guys call it membrane or well? There was something catchy around it. I forgot. It was like the hexagons. Like just talk about that.
Yeah. So that's basically the bundles around membrane. Um, I was calling them membranes for your CDP for a little bit. Um, but basically those bundles. I mean, those bundles are just like it's like the same thing as if you collateralize your whole portfolio. So you get to be more picky with the risk. So like personally for the user, you get to be more picky with risk. Um, you get to just diversify your position, your volatility a lot more. So like if you hold 10 assets that you think are strong and you can collateralize them, it doesn't really make sense to have one asset per position, especially because if you're going to set up your portfolio in a way that that balances each other out, putting one at risk because you can't put them all in the loan is probably not a great idea, or it doesn't feel great to you because it kind of kills the balance um of your portfolio. But for the protocol in general, having having users or giving users the ability to collateralize all of these also means that CDT supply has less volatility because there's just less liquidations. Um, as each position has less volatility than it could have. Like it has less potential volatility because there's uh uh like varied assets in it. So like I don't think we've seen a liquidation in probably like 3 months. And when we were seeing them, it was normally like single Osmo or like SD Osmo position. Um, but the bundled positions weren't getting liquidated that much, so that was good to see. Um, but it also helps the protocol because um, like the strength of CDT and like the trust behind it is its collateral. So it's it's a little clearer to it's a little clearer from the outside to see, oh, this protocol has BTC, it has ETH, it has USDC, it has Atom. Oh, all these are collateralizing it for or lowering the volatility um the general protocol portfolio. But if you're having all these collaterals in separate positions, then you're not really benefiting from the volatility of all of them. So it generally just makes it makes CDT supply more resilient, which is great when you're looking like farther into into a more mature market for CDT, where people are worrying about the interest rates and the borrowing costs. If supply is less volatile, then those costs will be less volatile as well. So it's more useful down the line than it is right now, but it's something that's necessary for a mature stablecoin.
Yeah. So you talked about how Maker has sort of this reliance on USDC, and because it's like collateral and it's all one to one. But there's been attempts to make Maker just like fork Maker, but only allow like Ethereum, just like ETH. That's it.
Yeah.
And there are arguments around sort of yes, if you have more assets in a basket, it's more diversified, but they're all crypto assets. So like they all relatively go down when the crypto market's doing bad, all relatively go up whenever the market's doing well. What do you think about single asset backed stablecoins like a purely Bitcoin backed stablecoin, or what was the old Maker example? I forgot what it was called. An Ether only backed stablecoin. Could you just like talk about that?
Yeah, I think the Maker one was actually like single asset die or something. But yeah, so there's a couple of them right now. Like LUSD is big. That's ETH only. I think the new one is going to use LSDs as well, like ETH LSDs. But I don't really see a problem. Okay, well, there's a problem, but generally, there's not a problem in reducing the amount of crypto assets that you use as collateral because generally you only want to use higher liquidity assets anyway, or like you're only going to scale with higher liquidity assets. The smaller the smaller liquidity assets you're going to have to restrict anyway, so you're not going to get as much supply from them. So if you're just going to focus on a couple of the big ones like BTC and ETH, you'll get a lot of supply, like a lot of bang for your buck. 80% of your supply is probably going to come from those. But the problem is, and the problem is, and the reason why Maker added USDC in the first place is that in a bear market, when stablecoins are useful to hold, when people aren't trying to be risk on, they're trying to save their assets, save their capital, capture yield, stuff like that. That's when demand for a stablecoin increases, but supply decreases because leverage is down. So if you only have ETH as collateral, your supply will only increase with the amount of leverage demand for ETH or for Bitcoin. So you end up in a scenario where you have way more demand than you have supply, and your token depegs to the upside. So this seems good to people that are already holding the asset. Oh yay! I was holding $1. Now it's at $1.02. Like I just made 2%. But it means that nobody else. It means that any new users that want to use that stablecoin are basically gonna be taking a haircut in the future. So like if it's at 1.2, well not 1.2, but $1.02, and I buy in, I have to make sure I get out before it goes back to peg, because the system is built to bring it back to peg. So if I know it's gonna go back to $1, I need to get out before I lose that 2% that I overpaid for the stablecoin. So this makes the stablecoin itself like worse of a product in the time of need, or in a time when people need it. So this is why DAI ended up adding USDC, because DAI was depegging to the upside, and the easiest way to get non-ledger supply is to use an asset as close to the denomination or to the peg denomination as possible. So USDC is obviously 1-to-1 with USD, so that's why they added it. So like only using crypto collateral is great because you're very high in decentralization, but the product in the stablecoin itself ends up going through issues when it has outside demand. This is why LUSD, LUSD has basically been trying to iterate on this. They've been trying to iterate on this, but they're about to launch V2, and it seems like it's going to be the same issues. So there's always going to be this kind of demand excess during bear markets or anytime leverage demand goes down. So that becomes an issue. But let's say nobody wants to join the stablecoin anyway. Like that's fine. It's a non-issue if people aren't. Well, I guess if you're buying into it anyway, if you're buying into it anyway, there's demand anyway. That's pushing it from $1 to $1.02. People are going to be losing money between that interval. But let's say people don't continue buying it. Let's say they stop because they understand they're going to be losing money. This is still bad for the protocol, because if the protocol can't scale and you have a protocol that can scale better, then you end up losing market share to the protocol that scales better, because now they have more space for more users, for more stablecoin demand to come in. Their liquidity gets deeper than yours. Now their stablecoin becomes a better product than yours does, and then that liquidity that's built up in the bear market is used in the bull market for leverage, and now you've lost all that market share because you couldn't scale in the bear market when people wanted you. So the bet against this, so the bet that LUSD makes versus DAI more or less is that, okay, I won't scale, but I know we'll be more resilient than you are because we don't have any centralized collateral. So essentially CDT is in the middle of this, where it's like we don't subscribe to the idea that scaling isn't useful. We're scaling harder than crypto native collateral isn't useful, but we know that if we get too close to USDC, without if we entrench USDC in our system, then we lose the decentralized part of the stablecoin. So we can't do that either. So essentially, we're trying to scale as much as we can to outscale the people not using USDC, but not scale too fast or too much, get too overboard with it, where we lose the decentralized part of the stablecoin, because that's basically where the value add is.
Yeah, that was really good. I guess let's now talk about stables and Cosmos, because there was previously Terra. Terra's gone, and there's probably let me think. You have Shade, you guys, and then actually it's just you, right, who runs the protocol?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. I had a co-founder, but he disappeared at the audit, so I don't know.
What do you? Oh yeah, let's get into that. He just disappeared, or yeah.
Oh, your mic cut out for a second.
Oh, did he just disappear? Or,
no,
literally disappear.
Literally disappeared. So I hadn't met him. We talked on calls or whatever, but I hadn't met him in person. He met a couple of people in person at a conference or something in New York. But then literally the day the audit started, I sent him a message, and I sent him 3 other messages that week, and I didn't hear from him since then. So it was I think it was August. I think it was August 13th, a year ago. So I've not heard from him. He hasn't been active on Twitter. Literally just MIA. So I hope he's safe, but I have no idea what's happening. So, yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. That's we'll talk about the single founder journeys later. Talk about the Cosmos stablecoin market and sort of how you grow stables, because IST is another one on Agoric, and Cosmos stables have been relatively slow. Sort of just talk about the current market, and then sort of how you guys plan to grow, or what describe the stablecoin game in Cosmos.
Yeah. So before the Kujira mess happened, the top 3 were USK, Silk, and IST. So I brought up IST a little bit earlier. It has the same problem as DAI does with the PSM, the one-to-one with USDC. So it has those resilience issues. But I think IST's main downside is that it's on Agoric. So there's no native protocols to integrate with it just yet. And IBC is great, but it's still hard to do asynchronous DeFi that's connected between all the chains right now. I mean, they're working on the orchestration, which is gonna do some stuff with the async work. But yeah, that's basically IST. It's other than that, it's a normal protocol. It's basically just DAI. So Silk is the private stablecoin on Secret. Uses a basket. The basket goes up against USD. Latest tweets had like 16% since launch. Um, I think that's the biggest one. I think that's the biggest one so far. So if we're looking at competition, that would be like the main competition. But the pros of Silk is that Shade has built so many tools around Silk. So like a lot of tools used in Shade bring value back to Silk, whether it's liquidity, whether it's lending, whether it's just general revenue to Shade that they then use in Silk. Um, so just like Terra did, they have a lot of protocols around Silk to use Silk, which is great for them. They have like their own little ecosystem. USK had the same thing, but the problem with USK is that any they didn't have any USD collateral. So like similar to Liquidity or LUSD, they had no USD collateral, but they had a bunch of different crypto collaterals. So USK would defeg all the time to the upside. But they had a huge ecosystem that could gear around it. They were solving problems with the peg before it all blew up. But that's happening. USK is probably going to launch again. I assume on Thorchain. Um, Thorchain's another story. They're doing some stuff. Um, nice decks over there. But and then we have CDT on Osmosis. So we don't build other protocols in house. I say we, it's just me, but I always say we. We don't really build other protocols in house. We're just working on CDT, everything CDT, anything that needs to make CDT work. And growth wise, a lot of people I talk to, I say think or suggest going cross chain and stuff, like going to Neutron, Archway, um, Juno, just other chains to try to grow CDT. But like fundamentally, all that does is spread out. Well, one, it spreads me out, but it spreads out CDT, and it's actually either adds risk or just fragments liquidity. So it's not that useful for growth wise. So the number one goal is to get LPs on Osmosis sustainable, so that Membrane, the token, isn't spending money to get CDT to work, basically, because you need liquidity for the stablecoin to work, for the flywheels to start, flywheels of people selling for leverage, buying. Well, buying is the harder part. People sell for leverage, that's easy. You mint CDT, you sell for leverage, but how do you get people to buy? So that's why we have different things like redemptions, so you can redeem CDT for collateral, or our liquidation pools where you can supply CDT to liquidate any assets that get liquidated for a premium. But the main thing is yield. So yield is how you attract capital, and yield is how we're going to attract liquidity. This is actually not fully, well, this is not released yet, but like the next steps right here or right now are I'm about to finish an LP vault, so it'll compound the CDT's CL, or concentrated liquidity pool, and then the vault will also get revenue from Membrane, so it'll get all our interest rate revenue. So this way, suppliers, or not suppliers, but minters, CDT minters, they pay interest rate, and essentially this interest rate will be used to attract the liquidity that they're going to use to trade, or other people will use to swap. So that flywheel of building that liquidity will not only, so it'll build liquidity on the ranges, and building liquidity at the ranges will allow like more sophisticated LPs to attempt to find alpha in the middle of the range, which will make not only will make swaps more efficient, but it will allow them to find yield within CDT. And then we also have an arbitrage vault, but this is basically this is USDC supply, and it's used to, so it's not denominated in CDT, and it's used to arb and loop Mars borrow yield. So we'll have one spot that's CDT liquidity getting CDT denominated yield, and then we'll have one spot that's USDC liquidity or USDC supply, getting USDC base yields from Mars and redemption arbitrage. So those two yields will attract the capital that also grow liquidity. And that's essentially how we'll grow and how we'll keep the protocol and the business of the protocol, which is keeping CDT stable, sustainable. And if we're not having to pay for liquidity, then we can then use the tokens for like excess yield or like directives if you want to bootstrap pools. But essentially we would just boost the yield. But the fact that it's not needed is what's powerful. But back to yield, the reason why yield is better for growth is that, like, say you have 10K CDT, let's just say CDT in revenue. We can put that all as like protocol owned liquidity and take the risk as a protocol to market make. But then we'd also be holding USDC, which we don't want to really do anyway. But that's not the point. The point is that it's inefficient. So let's say we have 10K in the LP, yeah, that's cool. But if we send the 10K to 20K of liquidity, that's a 50% yield on stablecoins. So it's more likely that people will take a 50% or less yield on their stablecoins to provide liquidity. It's more likely they do that, and it'll give us more liquidity than just putting 10K in. So yield essentially multiplies the capital you can attract into some venue. So that's why the big focus is on yield. So that's basically what our growth is going to be on, promoting that and just making sure all our LPs or our stablecoin, our stable swap LPs are sustainable and that they can find alpha in CDT so that people have a reason to mint, and as that liquidity builds up and the swap efficiency builds up, then we start being able to compete on swap efficiency for general leverage and general swapping usage. So we'll get excess demand from more use, and then also demand from just swap routing and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think that was a really good overview. Is there anything that we missed, or I think we covered it all? And then we could talk on sort of you building membrane and like why osmosis. You think we covered anything I'm missing?
I mean, I guess the big thing is that CDT has a floating peg. So it's like, I don't talk about it that much only because most users don't really feel it. But so if you've heard of Rye from Reflexer Labs, they don't do, or their main way of keeping stability for the token is by changing the value of the peg. So like it'll go from $1 to $2 to 50 cents. I mean, not really, but that's how it fluctuates. It goes up and down as the market cycles, and that's how they keep liquidity, or that's how they keep stability. But the problem with that is if you fluctuate too much, you're essentially just bleeding users' money when the price goes down, and then bleeding the borrower's money when the price goes up. So it's like you can't, like, it's a great tool, and it's great to know that the market will react to changes in pay, but it's not a great tool to use as the primary source of stability. So for CDT, we have very low interest rates or peg rates. Um, that will change the peg if it's over peg or under peg too much. Um, so that's just like I mean, as a borrower, you can just see it as an interest rate, like get in addition to the borrowing cost. Um, but yeah, those are like they're small, and the ones that are above peg aren't even on right now. But it's just for the sake that if USD, if the value of USD starts getting a little volatile, and our collateral supply and demand balance gets out of whack, we still have other methods of keeping stability for the stablecoin. So we're just basically ready for whatever happens.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because I've heard that Rye is actually more stable than Die because of a soft peg rather than a hard peg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Rise posted. I wish I had a link, but Rise posted recently, but they also had a one in the past. They'll post Rise volatility compared to other major currencies compared to USD. And it's always like super. It's always super low volatility compared to other currencies. So it's definitely doing great. I just don't think that like the economic actors in the system are having a good time. Because otherwise, I mean, I would say otherwise it could grow, but like I don't know if that's the best indicator. But like I think the market cap is small for a reason. Um, but yeah, compared to DAI, like just the aspect of hard peg versus soft peg is like you should generally be not as hard because things that are harder end up being brittle. So you want to be able to oscillate to flow a little bit. And I guess die die's brittleness manifests as censorship risk in USDC. So it's like rise definitely in the right direction. I think they just went a little too far.
yeah, that was good. I guess let's talk on now, like sort of membrane as a whole. Go through the stats. I think first talk about why osmosis, or sort of like I guess you got a Terra. You had all these different choices. You could have deployed your own chain. Why osmosis and like the whole founder journey? Just explain it all.
Yeah. So well, one pulling your own chain is so much work. Also just a lot more stuff that I don't know about. So I wouldn't really want to go down that route, especially by myself. But the journey in general, well, one, the options were post Terra, the options were Juno and Osmo or Osmosis because we needed a grant to get the initial audit. Um, and Juno just didn't make sense. And Osmo, well, and CDP stablecoins are like loans, loans in general. They need a price source, and to get a decentralized price source, it just makes sense. Well, one, it makes sense to be next to the liquidity, so we can get it from Osmosis. But at the same time, um, Osmosis is great because like any decentralized finance, like any DeFi actions that you can take synchronously on Osmosis. So that helps in that sense. Um, it also helps because Osmosis is trying to be a cross-chain hub. So like if we build a foothold on Osmosis, um, other assets will come our way. New collateral assets will come our way. Um, like their main thing is fighting for trading volume, and obviously stablecoins love trading volume. So they're doing the hard work they're doing is like directly benefiting us. Um, yeah, I mean, as a solo founder, yeah, I don't really know. I can say a lot, but most of it is just that you kind of just have to keep moving forward. It gets lonely at times because really you're the only one really working towards the protocol. So it's like um sometimes there's nobody to like bounce stuff off of. But generally, I just like being able to work on a focused product like Membrane, and like I have a clear vision of, or like I had confidence in what the system can do. So basically just productizing it in a way that attracts users so that it can build itself into a large enough system to actually help people with its resilience. Um, yeah, it's something I'm looking forward to. So it's like, yeah.
You also write all the Cosmos smart contracts and the front end. Is that right?
Yeah. So funny enough, the co-founder was supposed to do the front end. So I had no front end. Like all my background is in like in back end programming stuff. So like Java, C++, stuff like that. So I was okay doing smart contracts. I could do smart contracts, but the front end was not something I expected to have to learn how to do. So the first front end, I don't know if it's still live. The first front end was so janky. Like it was so janky. But it worked. It worked enough to get people to participate in launch. Like that's basically what it did. Yeah, quickest on launch. It was a no VC full community launch. So there's like 10 million out of 12 million membrane supplied currently is from launch or is in the hands of launch participants. But yeah, front end was janky. So I had to end up contacting a developer named Vinod. He ended up doing margins front end a little bit. So that's where I found him, and he made like the foundation for the newer front end. So I just been working on it from then. But yeah, if I didn't have his help to do that, it would have been rough. It definitely would have been rough.
Yeah, I remember that front end. I loved it because it was like the true startup feeling where it's just like it works. And so yeah, actually let's get into before Terra. So you had a computer science background. I heard Java, C++, sort of just like tell us how you got into Terra, Cosmosm and all that.
So essentially I started doing computer science stuff in like middle school, took classes in high school, went to college for computer science, ended up dropping out during COVID. I couldn't do online classes. I was teaching myself essentially. And I was like, if I'm going to teach myself, let me at least work towards something that's interesting, or like work towards something that I have control over. So then, something blah blah happened. I don't know. And then I got into trading. So I started doing forex trading and then crypto trading, and I don't trade anymore. And the reason I don't trade anymore is because I just lost a bunch of money. So I'm not a good trader. We don't ever use my trade advice. So, but that got me into crypto. Actually, no, the funny story is that one of the things that got me basically to, like, one of the last trades I made before I stopped trading, me and my friend, something was happening with XRP. And me and my friend were like, yeah, we're going to wake up and we're going to catch this pump on XRP. And we both lost all our money on that trade. We watched the whole pump happen. I think we got in late. And then just the moment we got it, all the money fell out. So not trading again. I'm a buy and hold type of guy, slow and steady. But that got me into crypto. I started basically just reading a bunch of white papers because like the system design is the stuff I'm interested in. And DeFi is heavy in like economic systems and the flow of money. So like I was just reading a bunch of white papers. Oh, what are people doing with tokenomics? Stuff like that. I started investing in like mostly tokenomics because I wasn't close enough to know the fundamentals of the products or the protocols and all the chains. But then I found Atom. That was cool. I was like, okay, Internet of Blockchains. That's awesome. That's probably gonna be useful. And then obviously, staking rewards and a bunch of other tokens seems like the best thing in the world. So I can tell why Atom holders are mad. But the promise was great. And then yeah, from Atom I got the Terra, and I ended up Apollo DAO, which is now launched on Neutron, was the first Discord I joined, and that's basically where I met like all the people, or like that's where I basically called home for all the Terra. I met like Anon and Bruce, a nice guy named Fluffy Trix, Cuddle Pigeons, Cuddle Pidgeys. I mean, maybe it's Cuddle My Pidgeys. Honestly, I don't know. But yeah, we all still talking Apollo. So that's where I met like my first group, and that's also where I met my co-founder, which is still going. And yeah, I was just getting into UST. It was like, oh, we need decentralized money, yay, and go on. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of tired. I started writing threads. I was like, I know how to program. I'm kind of tired of just watching people and praying that they make my money go up. So let me actually contribute to this ecosystem. So I was like, okay, let's build a protocol, and that's when me and my co-founder started talking about building. We designed for like 6 months. Protocol died. I mean, not protocol. Terra died, and we moved on. Literally the day of DPEGs, we messaged each other like, "Are we still doing this?" I started coding that day. I was like, "If I don't code today, it's gonna be a very dreary couple months." So it's basically been heads down since the DPEG, and I had to learn Rust and Cosmos to code everything. So like, but I ended up making so many contracts that it was fairly easy to learn along the way. But it just meant a lot of reading docs, and the Cosmos docs can get a little confusing. So yeah, not the happiest about those docs, but it's definitely it's definitely gotten better in the last 2 years. But it essentially took a year and a half of just like me and my basement coding to get Membrane launched. So that was a trial. I definitely was going through it, and I'm still recovering from feeling like the daily pressure of just having to get work done. So like that's cool. I feel a little lighter now that Membrane is launched. It has been a year, but now it's like it's fun to see it. It's fun to see everything work. We had like a lot of chaos in the early couple months. Like one of the biggest things was we didn't have ownership over our governance contracts, so we couldn't upgrade any of the contracts. So any exploits we found, we couldn't upgrade for 3 months, and then we needed, like, essentially we thought we needed Osmosis to upgrade their chain to give us ownership, and then we ended up finding a loophole in the governance where one of the validators, Nostradamus, he's in the Membrane Discord all the time, but basically he had to submit a chain or submit a transaction on his node so that we can get it in with enough gas to like upgrade the governance contract. So it was so complicated. I thought Membrane was gonna die a bunch of times. So I'm just glad we're here, you know. Moving forward.
Yeah. That, like, the Cosmos bear market was easily the most depressing, hardest thing I ever went through.
Yeah, that was not fun.
Yeah. Now let's talk about. I see your banner has like the TVL is like over 5 million.
Oh, yeah.
The total minted is, what is that? 2 billion CDT.
Yeah, I changed that.
Can you?
Yeah, I changed that like maybe a week ago, but it's just like it's kind of like exposure therapy, in the sense of where if I see it, I'll have emotions that react to the picture and to the future on where that's true, and you can't create like futures that you don't feel that you deserve or you don't feel like are possible. So like if I see that and it's like and it feels like that's not reachable, then either I need to figure something out, I need to work through some emotions around it so that I can think clearly about how I set up the system to make sure that we grow to our potential. But like my goals generally with Membrane are to set the system up so that other actors can help the growth around it. Like I'm not trying to single-handedly bring us to the moon. There's a lot of people involved. There's already a lot of people involved. Cypherpunk is the one that runs our app, or our he's the one that runs our app on Vercel. We have a bunch of people. All the governance is decentralized, so like we have a bunch of people that vote every week, multiple times a week, for 3-day voting periods. So like my goal is just to create a system that brings value to the people that are creating the value, so that they have interest in keeping the system alive. So yeah, that banner is just basically to make sure that I'm moving forward, and I believe I can get there. I have faith that we can get there, and I'm not letting anything internal hold us back.
Yeah, that was great. I guess it's time to wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I love the story.
Not really. I don't have anything in mind. Just watch out for stablecoin yields on Osmosis. We'll be spamming them on Twitter. Yeah. Can you link our Twitter? Or I feel like it's hard to say the letters.
Okay. I guess thank you so much for hopping on. Whatever the podcasters say at the end, I don't know.
Yeah.
Call to action. Check out Osmosis. Look at the yields on CDT. And thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for hopping on, Trix. Also, why the name Trix?
It's a nickname. Well, no, basically, my nickname was Tricky, so I didn't really want to keep it so long. So I just started naming myself Trick on a bunch of like my gamer tag is Trick. My Discord is now Trix. But yeah, I feel like I always got tricks on my sleeve. You always gotta pull something out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you.
Thanks for having me.